Good morning, West Ham fans. Hope you're all safe and well. Happy Thursday. West Ham can't ruin the weekend because we're playing on Monday. And I think that's a really important point to make about Monday. And we're going to come back to that because I don't know, I'll talk about Julian Lopetegui. I thought I'd just pick out a subject from out of the air. And I thought, I don't know, let's talk about the head coach. I talk about yesterday as well. Yesterday's a bit of a crazy day in the world of West Ham social media, wasn't it? Obviously, we'd had a debacle that was obviously the Arsenal game on the Saturday. Then on Tuesday, obviously, we had the defeat to Leicester City at was it Filbert Street? How long was that ago? The King Power. And then as a result of that, Wednesday was mental. Actually, Nutella, let's go back a little bit. Tuesday night was very busy, despite the fact being a sort of later kickoff. There was a lot of chatter on social media for a lot of journalists putting their oar in, saying how Lopetegui needs to go. And again, I sort of listened to some of the people. I respect to some of those journalists. So, Roshane Thomas, always respect Roshane, know him very well. So I listen to what he says because I sort of appreciate his opinion. And then Jacob Steinberg went on a little bit of a rant. Now, we all know Jacob Steinberg, who one of his main sources are when it comes to West Ham. So particularly when stories get leaked by Jacob Steinberg, usually they're leaked because his senior source, possibly one of the senior sources, wants that story leaked. And I think that's worth stepping back a bit as well and looking at that. There was hints and allegations all day yesterday across a multitude of different social media accounts with retweets. And I mean, our West Ham network WhatsApp group, I should have made it into a show. The amount of voice notes going back and forth, it was amazing. It was really engaging, really interesting, and people's different opinions and thoughts and conspiracy theories and all that type of stuff. And someone puts a post from Florian Peltenberg, and someone puts a post from Jacob Steinberg, and then Talk Sport, and then BBC and Sky Sports, and and Carve says something about 60-40. We'll get through all of that. We'll try and weed our way through it. But the fact of the matter is, no one knows. No one knows what's going on. The only people who know what's going on would be the board and Tim Steidham in terms of where their head's at, who agrees, who disagrees, all that type of stuff. All these leaks and updates are only to get info, only that info that gets leaked is it info they want leaked. There's nothing exclusive. ITKs, in the nose, websites, Patreons, all these types of things. They get information and reveal it. And the information they get is usually from one source, and that one source is open to give them that information. They don't give them the family silver, because otherwise we'd have a clear, plan of what happens. And I was watching, I think it was Gio actually, a Ham's chat. He says everyone just wants to be first, and I totally agree with that. It was so true. And they do it for whatever reason. Monetary, clout, shit stirring as well. There was a betting website that basically said that he'd been sacked, and it was basically to get you to click on the link and then put a bet on. There was reports that betting was suspended yesterday. There was reports from Talk Sport to say, these guys, it was going to beat Jim White, and obviously we know who Jim White's main contact is and stuff. So if we picked apart the news and looked at, separated the bullshit, maybe from the slightly less bullshit, we know that there is a board meeting happening this week. It could have happened yesterday, but I don't think so. It's going to happen within the next 72 hours, it was believed yesterday. So by Friday, so basically I think the idea would be a morning board meeting on Friday. That's what it's going to say. And then people go, it's taking too long. I think people just think you can just switch on and off like it's a TV program or just send a text, you're sacked. Now, the consensus is Friday, and people, as I said, have been critical. And people have been critical also, but Dave Sullivan needs to sack him. Sully is not, he is the major shareholder, but he's not the shareholder. He's not the one and only. He's not the Chesney Hawks. There's several other players in that boardroom now. Danny Kudzinski, previously I said it was Gold, him Gold, and then there was some smaller sort of partners like the Browns and stuff. Then you got Trip Smith in there now as well. Kudzinski is in the midst of a mass, takeover at the moment of companies and sorting out. He's just spent a load of money on Sparta Prague's stadium, and so spreads himself in. So to get everyone together in half a day's notice, it's impossible. So for me, I understand the process. We are not in a rush, if that makes sense. We as fans are in a rush. We as fans wanted, in an ideal world, that result today, and then on Tuesday, and on the Wednesday to find out that we haven't got a head coach anymore and Julien's left. That's what a lot of the fan base wanted, but that doesn't happen. Football doesn't happen like that, And I think sometimes we think, it's that simple, but it ain't. There's so much you got to get through. Even if you're trying to dismiss someone at work, it's got to be certain protocols need to be hit and stuff like that. Now, I love a conspiracy theory. What I didn't understand was the timing of one of the news articles that happened yesterday, which went from one person, one news outlet, and went all around everyone, was about the bust up, the Arsenal bust up with Todibo. Why did that take 4 days, 5 days for that to come through? Why did that happen? Why didn't it come out on a Sunday after the Arsenal game? But it didn't. Someone was holding on to that. And again, why was that leaked? Who leaked that? What was the reasoning for the leak? I've got my own theory about that. I don't think it's. I don't. For me, it's no point me talking about that theory because actually, there has legal ramifications to that, in my opinion, in terms of why that leak has happened. But I'm pretty sure if you're anyone who's hired or fired people, you could probably read between the lines in terms of a similar trail of thought that I've had. Now, that's a bit weird, firstly, why that's happened. Now, when I mean we're not in a rush, I mean there was an opportunity on Monday night, under the lights. We'll have the fireworks, we'll have the light show, we'll have the DJ, we'll have the Sky cameras as well. Regardless of what happens between now and Monday night, the world and their mother, from a sports perspective, in terms of all the journalists and the reporters, will be at London Stadium. Whether that's for the right reason or positive reason, i.e., there's a change of changing of the guard, someone's brought, and that type of thing, or it could be Lopetegui could still be in charge conceivably, and it's his last game. The fact is, we're playing Wolves, playing aside. If Lopetegui is still in charge, Gary O'Neill does not need a team talk. Because a lot of the players would have been who were still there, would have been left in the lurch with Lopetegui when he sort of left, almost into the beginning of the season. They'd be all out so the high chances are they'll be going for that game. In a similar way, if the decision is made to relieve Julian of his duties, yes, we could have a new manager in place, a new head coach in place by Monday. And I believe that is one of the reasons why there's been a delay in this board meeting to make sure all the ducks are lined up. We've said it before. We know the MO of our board in terms of their picking head coaches, managers, and sacking them or sacking previous ones. And people go, he doesn't sack. There's several managers that have been sacked under the current regime. Pellegrini, Bilic. Obviously, we had Slav on a couple last week. If you haven't seen the interview, go and check it out. It's a great interview. And so, but they only did that when they knew that the next one was coming in, and it was David Moyes on both counts. Could it be a third time lucky? Well, according to some of the guys I was chatting to yesterday, they were saying, well, he's the only one who knows to sort of navigate through the way that the ball operates potentially. So I don't think it's the case, but I'm just saying, there's always a yin to the yang when you have these discussions with people. It's fascinating hearing different people's opinions. I absolutely love it. So there's that. So, and obviously, Monday, you're thinking, it's a huge opportunity to present the new head coach, the new manager to a fan base there, to all the Sky cameras. The flip side is, as I said, conceivably, Lopetegui might still be in charge, and the decision was made to keep going with him. And indeed, if that's the case, if it doesn't go our way, you could have a similar situation that we had to Arsenal last year when the Sky cameras were there and we got absolutely hammered and the fans turned and they walked out. And that's not a good look for West Ham. So there is sort of saving grace, saving face sort of idea looking at that by making that appointment before Monday. And then you go away. And if, and in this case of, I'm thinking, looking at Leicester City and Ruud van Nistelrooy, Cooper was gone. The sort of the die was cast still for Steve Cooper a while ago. And as I said, they let Steve go. Ruud had pretty much walked straight into the job. They had him lined up. They had the first team coach take on the game at Brentford, and then he was in charge for the home game, so to speak, against West Ham, his first game. I could see that similar thing happening, whether it's Kevin Keane or someone like that taking over for that one chance or that one game potentially as a sort of caretaker, quite possibly. But look, we're talking about someone who still hasn't lost their job yet, which is crazy. Why Friday's really interesting as well. And again, timing wise, it sort of works out well for West Ham in a weird way because the press conference for the Wolves game, because of it being on the Monday, it's been booked in for the Friday lunchtime. So if a decision has been made, it'll have to be made pretty sharpish on the Monday. If it hasn't been made already, again, I'm not saying they're not talking to one another in terms of the board. And then, the idea is that Monday or that Friday is going to have a board meeting to discuss. We don't know. Maybe they've already decided and they're discussing who's going to be that time. I don't know. Again, no one really knows. Everyone's speculating. But even if Julian isn't relieved of his duties, he's going to go into a press conference room full of people like Rashane, like Jacob, like people who have been very, very direct with their thoughts around whether he should be the West Ham head coach or not. Could be a very awkward press conference. So even if it is, you'll have to watch the West Ham Network and we'll go through it all on Friday because I think it could be very interesting. So I'm under no illusion that it's a foregone conclusion because I don't think it is. Carve came out yesterday and said on Sky Sports that it was 60-40. And I think a lot of that is probably because maybe that we haven't got the next guy lined up, or maybe there is. There has been a relative upturn in form, although you might agree or disagree. I thought we played, obviously, Newcastle game we played well. Arsenal played a game we didn't. The Leicester City game, the stats suggest that obviously we had a good game. Obviously, the main stat, losing 3-1, didn't say we had a good game. But there was a lot of attacking football and stuff like that. And, you could see some people, potentially the more risk-adverse people, saying, actually, there is a change. And obviously, people go, well, Kudus wasn't there for 5 games an hour. There's always excuses to sort of back up a decision. But I think it does seem things are piling on that it's likely to happen than not happen. I think it's a case now of of when rather than if, when that trigger is pulled. In all honesty, when he gets the old tin tack. See, I got it right, not tin can, the tin tack. But then the conversation drifts on, okay, well, if that's the case, then should have the guy lined up. That's the MO of the board in terms of how the board sort of set up. They don't tend to sort of go, I'll let this guy go and then we'll sort of find someone. They'll have someone lined up already. And there's obviously been a number of conversations allegedly had with a number of interested parties or people who may be interested, who might not be interested. We do not necessarily know as such. So who are they? Well, according to the latest betting odds, and again, we saw that the odds were what was it called? The sort of betting site. Some of them suspended the betting for him being sacked yesterday. But we've got the top sort of 12 plus a few others who have been mentioned. Michael Carrick, according to many, is the favourite. Maurizio Sarri, Edin Terzic, Massimilio Allegri, Graham Potter, Steve Cooper, Scott Parker, David Moyes, Benitez, Jose Mourinho, Ten Hag, Rudy Garcia, Stefan Hoynes, Sergio Conceição, Gary O'Neill, Casper Clement, and Roger Schmidt. And again, those are the names that have been coming up. People will on the back of this video say, "Oh, what about Abel Ferreira from Palmeiras and people like that?" Yes, there are probably another 3 or 4. You could. What about Marco Silva? What about Thomas Frank? What about Ariella from Bournemouth? And indeed, there's others like that we could add to the list. But in all honesty, we know the MO of our board in terms of deciding who's going to be. Usually free, don't have to pay any compensation. I can't think of a time we've bought out a manager. In fact, I can't even think of a time that a manager's been poached from West Ham to go, which again, to me, would show you've appointed the right person if another team wants your manager. But I don't think that's ever happened with West Ham. Not that I can remember in the foreseeable future, previous past. Everyone's either been sacked or they've walked out their contract at the end. Because that's the only way people leave jobs, isn't it, in football, is they get sacked, they get poached, or they don't get offered a new deal. And I've never had the poached. Can't remember the poached. But anyway, go back into that list. I think listening and watching, I like to people watch, I like to social media watch, and I like to see what people are saying in terms of, and it does seem there's not one person, there's not a standout candidate that everyone's gone, he's the man for us. Everything is but no, he's defensive. He's whoever we pick. I don't think there's going to be one which people are going to go, he is right, 100% approval rate. Thank you very much. And everyone has. I think there's some who people don't want. So I'd say maybe Steve Cooper. I can't see Steve Cooper being the next West Ham head coach. In all honesty, but what's quite interesting is if you look at those names and say we take on the MO that we won't, because it's not just David Sullivan, it is the rest of the board as well. They are unlikely to buy out someone's contract, particularly because they like to always have the next guy lined up. And if that's the case, you can't really do that if you sack someone and then you'd have poached someone before. So if you look at that, we take out Michael Carrick, obviously currently at Middlesbrough, Scott Parker at Burnley, Jose Mourinho at Fenerbahce, Sebastian Hoynes at Stuttgart, and Gary O'Neill currently at Wolves. And then you're left with the also ret men, in terms of some of these players. Now, what's quite interesting, I mean, again, I wouldn't necessarily think Moyes is in that list. I know he's in the betting list, but I think he would have distanced himself because if he came back, it would have to be on his terms, and therefore we'd be in a similar situation that we were a year ago when Tim Steidlen presented David Moyes with targets which were then vetoed. And I think that was part of the reason why he didn't sign the new deal, because his new deal, I don't believe it was taken away from him. I believe it was replaced with a head coach deal, which is what it was always going to be in my eyes. And that's not his way. He's an old school manager. Fair enough. But then what's quite interesting, as I said, if we look at, and what I've tried to do is I've tried to sort of I'll take Moyes out, but put these people in camps, because there are definitely camps. There's definitely looking at that. So, and again, it's interesting to see where these names are being linked from. Who's linking us to these jobs. So if we went with Sullivan, now I think it was Jacob Steinberg. He basically said that West Ham were. Let's put a background on this better. He basically said that West Ham were really interested about Sergio Conceição, former Porto man, that type of thing. Now that contradicts another source, but he said that, and we know that Jacob, his main source is one of the senior sources. That's all we're going to. But his sources, HP. and he's interested in the job, that type of thing. I mean, I think he's also interested in the Wolves job and the Everton job, really. But Rafa Benitez, Sullivan has been trying to get him for years. Mauricio Sarri, again, a real Sullivan type, Premier League, older, that type of thing. Steve Cooper, I think, probably more of a case of he's free. Again, you could probably add Brendan Rodgers to that. That's someone who they've been trying to get for years as well, via various companies. And so when you look at that, you sort of say, okay, well, that's sort of where we're at, in terms of those options. Now, Steindon, obviously we know, and again, the names that have been mentioned when it comes to his, have been mentioned adding to the pot of potential names, tend to come from Florian Piltenberg, who we know is a buddy of his. We know he's in, he was the only guy he's done an interview with, that type of thing. We also know if anything comes of Pizza Romana, he tends to work with Tim as well in terms of that type of information. Edin Terzic is someone who is very much probably top of Tim's list, in all honesty. Florian yesterday also said that Kasper Højlund, who, the former Danish national coach, again, someone we mentioned a while ago because there was a list of him, Roger Schmidt, former Benfica manager, and also Sebastian Hoeneß from Stuttgart, who, because he's at Stuttgart, he's currently there. He's not going to get we're not going to buy him. We're not going to get him out of contract. Although I to be honest, would probably be my favourite one of the people we've been linked with. I just can't see happening. Ten Hag's an interesting one because I always, because obviously Tim he's always pit side pre-match, and he was having a good old chat with Ten Hag at the Man United game. Nice, big old cuddle and stuff like that. So possibly. And then you've got the agent talk. Rudy Garcia, former manager, he's out of contract at the moment. You've got Mauricio Allegri. Lots of noise about him staying in England and learning English, and Graham Potter. I think although he's on the list. I think we've got the impression again from journalists in terms of from inside in the ITK news that he's probably going to be not likely to join West Ham. Their benefit, and it was always the case. I remember he was linked to when we had when we were looking at before Julien came in, the same type of thing. He's not right for West Ham. It's all done by the supercomputer, and that's where we're at basically at the moment. We're at the moment where we're a bit like status. We're sort of stuck in purgatory at the moment. We don't really know what's happening, and people that claim it do probably don't, in all honesty, because it's been very, very hush hush, and because of that, people speculate, people put up together ideas, people put 2 and 2 together and come up with 4, that type of thing. And I wouldn't say, I mean, again, everyone has pluses and minuses in terms of, I mean, obviously some have more minuses than pluses and some have more pluses than minuses potentially. And someone will say, oh, this guy's really defensive. And then someone will go, he plays, oh yeah, but he doesn't. People just jump on the old bandwagon thinking they know what they're doing, to be honest. However, one thing you can, and just to finish off nicely, one thing you can decide on is when to get involved with Christmas, when to get that letter to Santa, all that type of stuff. And we're partnering up with Santaco, thesantaco.co.uk, to help your little ones and your grand little ones get the Christmas they deserve and a lovely personalised letter from Father Christmas. It's a different brand deal. It's different, but honestly, I've done it. Anton's done it with his kids as well. I did it with me. Because I'm a good boy. So let me finish with a little video, and I said we're back with plenty of transfer news as well. And people are thinking, why are we covering transfer news when because that's the idea of this modern way of setting up a football team rather, in terms of director of football works on recruitment and the head coach works with those players and works with a style of football that the director of football and him put together. So we are being linked with quite a few players at the moment. But anyway, we'll come back to that in a bit. Just around the corner, make sure your little ones or your grand little ones have got their letter from Father Christmas, personalised letter through the post with our friends at Santa Co. Very easy, intuitive website, lets you put in your specific details for your little ones and get a personalised letter sent out by the big man. So this is how it works. You enter your child's name into the software, whether they're male, female, whether they've got any siblings, their siblings' names, what they've achieved over that year, whether they've been misbehaving. You can put that information in, and then you can click examples. Names of any friends, any notable experiences in the past year where Santa's going to be visiting on Christmas Eve, any lessons they want to learn. Be careful what you wish for. And then it goes and writes the letter, all personalised to those information points you put in. So you'll see stuff like the 26,000 subscribers. You've got things like the Open Conference win, the fact I've been eating a pizza. Be careful what I wish for, my holiday to Dubai. All those things have been entered in to help personalise the letter to the young one. And once you're happy with that, you can obviously edit that. You can make your own adjustments to that letter before you hit proceed. But once you're happy with that, you press ready to go. You put in your bank details and it'll be sent out by Royal Mail very, very, very quickly. You can pay for 1 day or 3 day. And here is my letter. Came very, very quickly. Within 1 working day, you can pay for 2 to 3 or 1 working day. So it's come through. I've opened it already, just so you couldn't see my address, because hordes of women will be coming around to my house trying to have their wicked way with me, I'm sure. Mrs. Bond wouldn't mind anyway. So it comes here. We have got a certificate which says that I am officially on the nice list this year. Standard. Sort of knew that, but now I've got a certificate to prove it. So that's all personalised. Russie B. So that would be your child's name. And then I have a letter from the North Pole. The official North Pole delivery made out to Russie B. So let's see what it's all about, shall we, Alfie? So we'll open this up. And what they do is they don't lick it down, so you can read it first to make sure you're happy before you give it to your kids. It's just and so we have it from the desk of Santa. A nice good stock, and it's got the letter that we saw, but obviously all printed up, and it's got a QR code at the bottom there, which we'll find out if we just scan the QR code, and it downloads, gives you a voice note.
Greetings from the Santa Co. Wow, what a year it's been for you. Well done on your huge YouTube success and that thrilling chat with Slaven Bilic. Hope you're still tying those shoelaces proudly. I've heard about your Dubai adventure and the pizza challenge. Cheeky. Cherish moments with Tom, Simon, Will, and Evie. Exciting surprises await on Christmas Eve.
There we go. So that is thesantaco.co.uk, and get involved. Cover your irons.